The urban fabric of a contemporary metropolis resembles a living organism where traffic plays the vital role of an incessant bloodstream. However, the fluidity of these movements is not a matter of chance, but rather the result of deliberate engineering that seeks to harmonize the rush of movement with the need for safety and human interaction. When analyzing the evolution of cities, it becomes clear that the management of traffic flow through one-way streets and modern roundabouts represents one of the most significant transitions in global urbanism, transforming the chaos of intersections into a geometric choreography that is predictable and efficient. This analysis explores the historical roots, technical foundations, and social implications of this structure, revealing how the choice of a direction or the imposition of a roundabout can redefine the destiny of a community, always keeping a close eye on the delicacy of the human experience between concrete and asphalt. Welcome to Barbosa City's channel, where we are starting the third episode of this series, building our capital in search of the perfect city, Vale Central. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Leave a like here at the beginning of the video, otherwise you'll forget later. You helped me a lot in the last episode by hyping up the video, and we managed to reach the goal needed to get close to the 100th place. Who knows, maybe this video will surpass the previous one, so for that, I really count on your hype. It will help me a lot. YouTube will show this video to more people who will get to know our series here and maybe, who knows, even move here to Central Valley. I wish you an honorable one. After all, this kind of video takes some work. Without further ado, let's go to episode 3, One-Way Streets and Roundabouts. The history of traffic management doesn't start with a combustion engine, but with the sound of horse hooves and the creaking of wooden wheels. On Basalt, in Rome, the Eternal City, urban planning already showed an understanding that public space is finite and requires rules for coexistence. In the year 70 before Christ, Cicero described a city that, despite being beautiful, suffered from a precarious road network made up of winding and extremely narrow streets. To remedy the imminent collapse, the Romans established the first documented road hierarchy, creating the embryonic concept of one-way streets. To ensure the functionality of the empire, Roman engineering classified roads into 3 distinct categories, each with a specific social and technical function. The itinera were intended exclusively as a millennia-old recognition of the importance of walkability. The actus, with a modest width of 2.90 meters, allowed only one cart to pass at a time, which, by operational logic, required a one-way direction of traffic. The VA, on the other hand, with a width of 4.80 meters, with the main arteries that allowed 2 vehicles to pass each other. This structure shows that one-way traffic was born from the physical impossibility of accommodating opposing directions in narrow spaces, a lesson that modern urban planning has inherited and refined. However, the modern concept of one-way streets as a deliberate engineering tool to combat congestion emerged with the advent of mass automobile use in the early 20th century. The character in this story is William Phelps Eno, recognized as the father of traffic safety. Born in 1858 into a wealthy family in New York, Eno never learned to drive a car. But his obsession with road order was born in 1867 when he and his mother were stuck in a traffic jam caused by just a dozen horses and carriages. He realized that urban traffic chaos was not the result of too many vehicles, but of the absence of clear movement rules. That's because he never knew São Paulo. In the case of São Paulo, I think it's because of the excess of vehicles. But anyway, back to Eno, who is not the antacid. He was responsible for creating the world's first municipal traffic code for the city of New York in 1903. Among his most impactful innovations are the stop sign, the crosswalk, the roundabout, and crucially, the implementation of one-way street systems. Under Eno's advice, the first one-way streets were established in New York in the spring of 1908, in Boston in the fall of the same year, and in Paris in 1909. These measures were initially taken to resolve the total blockage of narrow streets, where carriages and automobiles could not pass each other in opposite directions without collision or a complete standstill of traffic flow. In contemporary urban planning practice, the implementation of one-way streets often takes place through the so-called binary systems. This is an operational solution that consists of turning two parallel and nearby streets, which previously operated as a single two-way street, into one-way channels in opposite directions. In other words, in our grid, if one street goes one way, the parallel street next to it goes the opposite way. The main goal is to turn conflict into flow, reducing the number of decision points for the driver and increasing the clarity of the environment for the pedestrian. And in the field of binary systems, Brazil presents examples. Curitiba, a pioneer in so many solutions and projects, implemented several binary systems in neighborhoods like Agua Verde and Pinheirinho in 2022. Aiming to reduce congestion stress on vital connecting roads. The Agua Verde binary system is particularly interesting because it combines vehicle flow with the inclusion of a 2,300-meter bidirectional bike lane, proving that one-way streets can be generous to other modes of transportation. Cities like Joinville, Santa Catarina, Santos, and Campinas in São Paulo have also adopted this strategy to revitalize commercial centers and organize public transport flows. Although with the warning that one-way streets can increase the distance traveled by buses and users, requiring refined route planning to avoid negative impacts on passengers' travel time. A strategic response to the disorderly growth of cities, where physical expansion of roads is often impossible due to the consolidation of built heritage. By eliminating the opposing flow, traffic engineering is able to optimize the use of the roadway in an extraordinary way. Studies indicate that the transition to one-way systems can increase road capacity by up to 25%. This happens because the simplification of intersections and crossings allows traffic signal times to be distributed more precisely, reducing waiting phases and eliminating the bottleneck caused by vehicles waiting to make left turns across oncoming traffic. And that's where the term green wave comes from, or synchronized traffic light acceleration, the ultimate expression of this efficiency. On a one-way street, engineers can design a progression of green lights that allows vehicles to maintain a constant speed without frequent stops, which drastically reduces the emission of polluting gases and the mechanical wear of vehicles. In addition, the uniformity of the flow makes it easier to monitor and operate public transportation, allowing for safer overtaking between buses and private cars. However, the implementation of a binary system requires a sensitive approach to the surrounding community. On one hand, traffic flow improves for cars, but on the other hand, residents and business owners may initially fear losing accessibility or an increase in speeds. Despite all the technical advantages, the implementation of one-way streets and roundabouts requires constant vigilance regarding safety risks. The greatest danger of a one-way street is the false sense of security it can create, both for drivers and pedestrians. For the driver, the absence of oncoming traffic invites excessive speed, and for the pedestrian, the habit of looking only to one side can cause distraction when crossing two-way streets or when encountering vehicles that are inadvertently driving the wrong way. The urban planner should therefore use the space gained by removing one direction of traffic to invest in what is called traffic calming. This includes widening sidewalks, creating rain gardens for urban drainage, and installing bike lanes. Ensuring that the one-way street does not become a human desert focused only on the fast passage of machines. The smart manipulation of street directions serves not only to move metal faster, but also to create breathing spaces in dense cities, proving that the one-way street can be the first step toward a human-centered street. And that's what we'll try to do in Vale 100.
Well, all the blocks are done here. I made these 3 super blocks, so we have a
super block here, a super block here, and a super block here.
and this one here. This one in particular receives the highway that enters the city, and it will have a diagonal avenue, a diagonal axis, connecting this corner to this corner directly here. But before that, I replicated our block model here and removed the pedestrian walkways so we can have a better view, where I'm going to explain to you the direction of the one-way streets, which is what we talked about at the beginning of this video. At first glance, it seems like a random choice. This street goes that way, this one goes this way, and that one goes that way. But here, there's a standard logic. There's a secret behind the choice. These directions will also work, especially for those who are traveling here on the avenues, okay? Why? I'm not sure if this happens in many cities worldwide, but it does in São Paulo. Let's suppose you're here in this lane, okay? And the way it's set up here, standard, you can leave this lane and turn left here. However, you're going to create a conflict point with those who are coming from this direction. Look, anyone turning left here will always conflict with those coming from the opposite direction. See, there's a conflict point here. The more conflict points you have at an intersection, the more complex it will be in terms of traffic lights, and also the more dangerous and higher the risk of accidents, which is the worst case scenario, right? In the best case scenario, it's just about management. What is the purpose of a one-way street? To ease and avoid too many conflict points? In this case, whoever is here on this one-way street, when the traffic light is green for them, can go straight ahead, or they can turn right or turn left, so there is no conflict point here. And when the avenue opens, whoever is going this way can't turn here, right? Because it's the wrong way, so they can only go straight. And then I'll prohibit the left turn, okay? I'll leave both lanes as continuous, and here they will also be continuous. In the other direction, however, here it will be allowed to enter the local street, so right turns will always be allowed. Why? Because it doesn't create any conflict points, left turns do, okay? So aren't we going to allow left turns, and then I'll repeat this rule at the other intersections? Then you might ask, hey Barbosa, but what about the initial problem? If I'm in this lane here and want to turn left, how am I going to do it? Well, you have an alternative, which is to turn right one street earlier. Look, here it's allowed, right? You're going to end up on a one-way street. Okay, and here, look, you'll get access to the street parallel to the avenue, right? So here we have the avenue, and we also have, look, the 2 streets parallel to the avenue, always these 2 streets parallel to the avenue. They follow the direction of the avenue's lane. So this lane on the right goes, so the parallel street on the right goes as well. It will also be an auxiliary road. And this lane here on the left, since it comes this way, the parallel street on the left will also come this way. So you can notice, right? This one goes up, this one goes down, just like our avenue here, right? This one goes up, and this one goes down. So going back to the explanation, you will exit 1 block earlier. And then you will get access to the parallel street here next to the avenue. And you'll be able to take this other street in this other direction, which will actually allow you to enter here. Okay, so is that the secret? For you to enter the street here, you have to get off 1 street earlier, go around the back here, and then you'll get access to this other side. This way, we can handle a larger flow of traffic. Because after all, look how much more space we have here for cars to drive. It's a considerably bigger area than if all of them wanted to come here. Look, if only through the avenue a line of cars piled up here and still conflicted with the other direction, right? With the other flow, we will only have 2 flows, the one from the avenue and the one from the street that crosses the avenue. None of them conflicting with each other, so our entire grid works the same way. So if you look here on this avenue, it's exactly the same thing. The guy who's here, he comes in through here, goes around the back, and then can access the other side here. This is the main logic here of these grids. And this one-way direction in Cruzeiro at the intersection of the avenues, things are going to be a little different. Well, I created the access ramps for the avenues here in Hov, so whoever is on the avenue and wants to turn right, to the right, the flow is always open. Look, you're going to take the ramp here and you'll end up on the other avenue. If you want to go straight, right, you'll stay in this lane here and it will let you continue. If you want to turn left, then yes, you'll stay in this lane here and turn left. Our right-hand access ramps already keep at least 33% of the cars from coming into these two lanes. The other 66% will stay here. It's one thing helping the other. And I preferred to use these access ramps instead of a roundabout, for a reason that I'll explain after we talk a little bit about roundabouts later in this episode. But let's get back to creating our avenue, diagonal avenue, right? Which will cut through our super blocks here. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments at these corners. Since we're going to have a lot of crossings from one side to the other, I won't use this traditional avenue. I'm going to do it manually, using the Network Multi-Tool mod here to create one parallel direction and another parallel direction going the opposite way. And this street, which I used as a base here for the connection, I'm going to remove it to make room for a central median. Done. Now we have the manual avenue here. Now we need to make adjustments at the corners. Well, these pedestrian walkways don't need to exist on this block, so I'll leave it like this. And this already frees up a good space for us to make this connection. I'm going to move the streets back and bring them in a way that they connect here. Look, directly, so this one comes here, and here on the other side as well, so that's how it's going. There will be a connection between the neighborhood streets and Diagonal Avenue, where we'll have a connection here and another one here, where a small roundabout will be built, connecting the neighborhood streets with Diagonal Avenue. And then I'll repeat this process at the other intersections. And this way, look, we get this opening here, this cut through the middle of the blocks. Look how it turned out from a wider view. And now we'll need to make the connections from this end of Avenida Diagonal to these avenues, and from this end of Avenida Diagonal to those avenues. Here, plus the highway. It's a difficult process, but here it will be simpler because, honestly, it doesn't need to come all the way here. This intersection of the park avenues, because man, whoever's entering the city through here can exit here and access the avenues. Same thing, whoever is leaving and wants to take this way, look, can also access it and leave. So I don't need to connect directly at this intersection. I think it's going to be a mess, too many roads. Well, and here on this other side, things are a little different. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to move back Diagonal Avenue here and also a bit of the highway, and I'll create an access here, also in a diagonal, coming out from where these two avenues meet, because this access will now be for these two avenues. Now, the access to Diagonal Avenue that we have here in front, I'm going to make it express through a tunnel, something like this, look. So I did it on one side, did it here on the other, and we connect it here, look, directly to Diagonal Avenue. Now we make this connection here with the expressway. Well, my idea is to have this expressway come all the way here at a lower level. That's why I'm going to select some of its nodes here, and I'll leave it at the same height as the tunnel here. So let's keep it here, look, at the same altitude, and this exit here too, right? So it's going to stay like this, and we'll make this connection here with the ground to receive the access from the highway. Well, 2 lanes will come here to the tunnel and will also come out of the tunnel itself. And 2 will go to this ramp that gives access to the avenues. Here, more or less like this. I'll adjust the node controller and also paint the lanes here, look, to make it more clearly marked. Well, in this way, we also get a simple, functional, and very nice looking access. Look, those going to Diagonal Avenue stay in these 2 lanes. Those leaving on these avenues stay in these 2 left lanes. And you stop here at the traffic light, then you decide where to go. And these avenues, right? We provide access here to all the blocks. Look, right? So the entrance is made here, right? I think it's interesting. I found this option of having the expressway end here and not here interesting. The park avenues, right? Because here, since it's going to be a central area, I don't want a highway, I just want streets and avenues. Here, since a suburb will start, I'll leave the expressway. However, as I showed you, it's going to be underground. and the city will happen here, above it. That's why I'm going to put a big wall on one side and a big wall on the other, so they can hold back the soil here. And this way, we get a corridor already ready for us to build from one side to the other to make overpasses here on top. And I think this option for entering and exiting the expressway turned out really nice here. Well, this is something that will have to be replicated 4 times because we have 4 highways. Of course, this isn't the first time I'm doing it. This is already the second one. I did the first one by myself over here on the other side, so it's kind of mirrored already. Look, I did it here to see if it would work, and you can see it's pretty much the same. And then I recorded while doing it to show you guys here on this other side, so everything is mirrored here. I've already done this process twice. I'll have to do it 2 more times here so we can finish what will be here, at least our central area of the city. Well, the plans are going really well. I'm liking it. I'm really curious to see how this city will work when everything is ready, but for now, it's pretty cool. Look who's back here, man. Our master plan is laid out, and, well, we finally managed to reach the final state we proposed in the last episode. We already have this here on the map, in the game, as you've already seen. And, well, I was taking a look and thinking, man, would it be a good idea for me to add something? And then I saw that we could try to work on creating parallels. Diagonals, parallels, like for example, we have this diagonal here and we have in the other corner, here also another diagonal, in this other corner, another diagonal. What I mean is this, there are 2 super blocks here that don't have any kind of crossing, and I want to make things more complicated. So I would make a diagonal crossing here as well, but parallel to the diagonal down here, by inverting these 2 axes. Like this, it's the same thing. It would continue this way and then become parallel with this one and parallel to the other diagonal here, which already exists. In this case, it would look like this and then continue on in the other super blocks. This would give us a result where we would get here, a diamond or a square inside another square with a square in the center. Anyway, I think it looks very visually pleasing. And besides the aesthetic part, the diagonals also shorten paths. For example, if the guy is in this block here and he wants to come to this block over here, he can get there pretty easily by cutting across here diagonally, instead of having to make an L, come to this avenue here, and then go up here. The distance is considerably shorter, mathematically and physically shorter. However, this shortcut solution, as we've seen in previous episodes here in the Central Valley series, brings us back to the problems with diagonals, where we end up having several roads meeting at a single point. And here we raise the hypothesis about that. Here, putting in a roundabout wouldn't solve it because, after all, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 avenues meeting here. In other words, some solution has to be adopted even for those who are here on the diagonals to be able to connect with the other side of the intersection without having to conflict here with those coming from other directions. For example, the guy who is here on this avenue, he can exit here. We have to make the continuous path easier for him. So, how are we going to do that? The overpass is ruled out in a central area. A tunnel, maybe and possibly, will be our solution. Anyway, I'm going to create these diagonals and we're going to try to solve them in a practical way inside the game. And let's learn a little bit from history about the anatomy of roundabouts if the line...
The one-way straight line organizes movement. The curve of the modern roundabout represents the intelligent reconciliation of conflicts at intersections. Historically, roundabouts, or traffic circles, were vast and conflict-ridden structures designed without clear right-of-way rules, which often resulted in total gridlocks or serious accidents. The big change happened in the 1960s. In the United Kingdom, engineers rediscovered the circular potential under a new regulatory perspective, the yield rule. The fundamental difference between an old roundabout and a modern roundabout lies in the priority dynamics. In the archaic versions, those inside the circle often had to yield to those entering, creating an operational collapse known as lock-in in the modern roundabout. The rule is clear and absolute. The vehicle already circulating in the circle has total right-of-way. The driver approaching must slow down and wait for a safe gap to join the circular dance. This design, combined with a geometry that forces the vehicle to make a gentle curve called deflection when entering. It ensures that speeds are kept between 25 and 35 km/h depending on the size of the roundabout. By turning dangerous intersections into zones of calm and continuous traffic, the safety math behind a roundabout is fascinating. In a traditional four-way intersection with traffic lights, that is, that typical intersection on a main avenue, there are 32 potential conflict points, including head-on right-angle crossings, which are extremely deadly. By replacing this setup with a single-lane roundabout, the number of conflict points drops to just 8. More important than the quantity is the nature of these conflicts. High-energy head-on collisions are eliminated, giving way to possible minor side collisions, which occur at sharp angles and low speeds. This reduces the severity of material damage and preserves physical integrity. Occupants. In Brazil, the terminology used to describe these circular intersections is as diverse as its culture. Depending on the region, a roundabout can be called a balloon, spinner, cloverleaf, rotary, or even cookie and rotunda. This diversity reflects the ubiquity of the structure in the country, although its application does not always follow the best international technical standards. São Paulo and Viseu countryside in Portugal. They become famous for the proliferation of these devices, turning into open-air laboratories of circular mobility. However, the Brazilian implementation faces unique challenges, such as the Rebel Roundabout of Santa Felicidade in Curitiba. It is an intersection that visually resembles a roundabout, but where the signage requires stopping in both directions, challenging the general rule of the Brazilian traffic code and constantly causing confusion among drivers. Another emblematic case of technical mismatch occurred in Teresina on Camilo Filho Avenue. A roundabout was installed on a narrow road with only 2 lanes, taking up almost the entire roadway, and forcing larger vehicles like buses to drive on the shoulder or over the central island itself. After 3 weeks of complaints and operational chaos, the structure had to be removed.
Look at the bus driving over the roundabout.
Showing that the roundabout is not a magic solution, but a precision tool that requires adequate physical space and rigorous turning radius studies. To understand the full potential of an urban transformation based on roundabouts, you should look at the city of Carmel in the United States, which started in 1996, as a bold bet by Mayor Jim Brainerd. Inspired by his academic experiences in the United Kingdom, he became a global phenomenon in civil engineering. Carmel systematically replaced its traffic lights with a network that now exceeds 150 roundabouts, boasting the title of Roundabout Capital of the United States. Carmel's transformation was not just aesthetic, it was a matter of public health and economics. The city, which had a population of 30,000 in 1996 and recorded 217 accidents, now has more than 100,000 residents. With an accident rate lower than decades ago, the reduction in accidents with injuries reaches an impressive 80%, a number that is reflected in the region's car insurance costs, which are among the cheapest in the state of Indiana. In addition to the tangible gains, Carmel uses the central islands of roundabouts to invest in public art and traffic landscaping, turning them into urban identity landmarks. The efficiency of vehicle flow eliminated the need to widen traffic lanes, which would cost between $7 and $10 million per mile, saving the public treasury a fortune. In roundabouts, safety depends on reducing speed when a roundabout is designed too wide or without a proper splitter island. The splitter island stops being a traffic calming feature and becomes a hazard. A pedestrian crossing a roundabout should have their path protected by these islands, which allow them to cross one lane of traffic at a time. By stopping in a safe refuge area in the center of the road, the lack of this infrastructure can intimidate cyclists and pedestrians, turning the roundabout into an obstacle instead of a solution.
And so, guys, that's the final result. With this street cutting through the blocks diagonally, we got a diamond inside a square, or a square inside a diamond, depending on how you're looking at it right and well. You can see that this street will give diagonal access to all these blocks, and it will make the connection to the other side underneath the intersection of the main avenues in the form of a tunnel, and it will keep connecting from here to there. I will also make this underground connection when we have the other blocks already built. I also want to make the connection between the super avenues. For example, we have this avenue here and this one here. I think there could be a direct connection, like a shortcut, instead of the person having to go all the way around here on the outside. But so as not to ruin the park, all these connections inside the park would be made through tunnels. So I would take this avenue and extend it a little further. Here, actually in all four corners, on this side, on the other side here as well, and here on this side too. Look, the four ends here and there, I would start the connection from here, going down a tunnel in all four corners as well. So this way we only take up a little bit of the park's space here, not much. And we can make this direct connection through here. And this one stays more on the inside. And we're going to have a central intersection here, but to make things more complicated, I also wanted to connect these diagonal entrances here. We have the diagonal avenue here in the center, in this center, and also at that roundabout down there. So what would I do? I would take it here where a diagonal avenue ends at this small roundabout, and I would continue a little further ahead. And I would bring, even if underground, a tunnel, and this tunnel would go towards the park. And it would also receive traffic from these one-way streets that help with the intersections here. Here it will look more or less like this, and I'll explain to you why I think it's necessary to have this connection here. First, it's to complement the other neighborhood streets that help us, like access ramps. They serve as access ramps. Especially here, this square around the intersection is one street helping the other. One hand washes the other. Down here, the two roads aren't connected, so this diagonal avenue doesn't connect with that diagonal avenue down there, because the connection is actually made at ground level with the one-way streets in the direction of the one-way traffic. That way, we avoid creating an underground roundabout, an underground intersection, because think about it. If I made an access to make traffic easier here for the guy to exit here, well, if you exit here, you're already ending up at the same spot, so it's an unnecessary construction. That was the setup and the ideal conclusion I came to, where all directions are covered, some easier, others a bit more difficult, but none impossible and none too unrealistic. I hope this setup will support the traffic we'll have around here in the future. And then, replicating this here in all four corners of our park. Look, we can make the connection, so I can connect this end here to this other end, right? We can also do it the other way around. We gain here vertically, then I'll also make the connection here horizontally. So there you go. Diagonal avenues connected. Now we're missing our vertical avenues. Actually, there's only one vertical, right? And one here horizontally, and voila, right? Later we'll work on this conversation here. on these 4 avenues down here, but it won't be in this episode, okay? I really want to know your opinion. So, what did you think of our final result here? Where we have diagonal, horizontal, and vertical avenues, all connecting with the help of one-way streets, neighborhoods, and shortcuts, right? Providing shortcuts, a boardwalk here for pedestrians, really a plan to bring order to the urban area to the city. I really liked it. It looks really cool, and I'm already getting pretty anxious to finish everything here. And the reason I didn't use roundabouts at these intersections is simply because, although roundabouts are great for vehicle flow, they fall a bit short when it comes to pedestrian flow. Notice the distance here, right? For a pedestrian to cross from one side to the other, it's a really short distance, and they can do it easily. Now, if you remove this intersection in favor of motor vehicle flow with a roundabout, the distance for the pedestrian increases slightly here, see, for me to be able to cross over to the other side. And in a walkable city, that's not good. And there's also the problem of space, because the bigger the roundabout, the more vehicles it accommodates. But, it ends up being worse for the pedestrian. So, in a dense city, I prefer to use either small roundabouts or simple quick right turn lanes that can be zoned, Here we can have a building facade, create a curved, beautiful corner, full of active frontage, design it, and highlight the intersection. The corner, which is one of the most important points of any avenue in any city. Good night.
Reflecting on one-way streets and modern roundabouts is to understand that the city is a delicate balance between vectors of force and living spaces. History has taught, from the alleys of Rome to the wide avenues of Indiana, that flow should not be imposed, but guided along the straight line of a one-way street. When well planned, it offers the efficiency of synchrony and the opportunity for multimodality. The roundabout circle, in turn, teaches the courtesy of yielding and the wisdom of reduced speed. The future of our cities lies in integrating these tools for lives with a human-centered vision. The ultimate goal remains the same: to transform daily commuting into a safe, smooth, and, why not, poetic experience. As Walter observed, walking through a city is like reading a story. It is up to urban planners and engineers to write that story. With the clarity of well-placed signage and the smoothness of a well-designed curve, ensuring that at every corner the citizen finds what they need. Not a conflict, but an invitation to coexistence.